We're going to have a chat today to author William Duperouzel, BEM. Born in Subiaco, West Australia, now lives in the UK. He's a fellow certified practising accountant, but now retired. And his keen interest in genealogy. Together with his wife, he researched his family roots and in 2003 published Petrocelum, A Global History of the Families Duperouzel. He was awarded the British Empire Medal, BEM, in the Queen's Birthday Honours list for services to charity and to the community of Bedfordshire in June of 2017. And he is about to launch a book called Sunset over Mount Doracking. It's all about Janet and the Reverend Edward Millett, who was the parson here in York way back in the 1800s. William, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon to you, Keith. It's nice of you to have me on board.
That's nice of you to make your time available. No, sorry that we got a little caught there, but never mind, we're up and running now.
No worries.
Now, Janet Millett, author and artist, and her husband, the Reverend Edward Millett. You've written a book as a tribute to having been inspired by Janet's book, An Australian Parsonage, or The Settler and the Savage in Western Australia.
Indeed. Well, I managed last year to get a copy of my own version of the book and read it from cover to cover. I was aware of the book years ago because someone gave me a photocopy of page 250 where Janet Millett mentioned my great-grandfather as the French convict. Of course, she was in York at the time. And truly, my great-grandfather, Omar, was in fact transported to Western Australia as a convict of French origin from the Channel Islands.
From the Channel Islands.
In 1856, and he arrived here in June 1858 and settled in York. And having been inspired by that story, which I included in the family history book, I've been determined over the years to try and get my own copy of the book. And I got it last year at the beginning of the year and read it from cover to cover.
So this inspired you then to write the story of Janet and Edward?
Well, I couldn't put the book down. I mean, it's so beautifully written. And there's no gossip in it.
No.
And Rika Erickson, who wrote the introduction to the facsimile version published in 1980, quoted Mrs. Millett when she said that the wife of an English clergyman was not a scandalmonger, and so her stories gave no offence. And this is true. It's a wonderful book. She doesn't mention people by name apart from her Aboriginal friends and a few others who were close friends. But you had to guess who the characters were that she's referring to. And her description is so vivid, and the fact that it crosses over the path of my great-grandfather and great-grandmother. It's nice to know that my great-grandfather actually met Mrs. Millett, or at least was aware of her. It's just a wonderful, beautifully phrased book. You just can't put it down. I think, in fact, it's a classic in Western Australia and one of the best-kept secrets in York.
Yeah, it certainly is.
A number of people are aware of it, but I really would like its reach to go way beyond the boundaries of the York region and district and appeal to anybody in Western Australia who's interested in historical facts.
Well, now, from 1863 to early 1869, the Reverend Millett was the colonial chaplain of Holy Trinity Church here in York, and they returned to England after that.
They did. In January 1869, they left to go back to England. His health hadn't improved, and so 5 years here in York. But she kept a number of diaries and books and journals and notebooks, determined to write her experiences of York. And, of course, when she got back to England, these were published in January 1872. And it's the most wonderful books. The reviews are fabulous, and in many cases they're consistent, but notwithstanding, it gives a vivid description of life in the mid-1860s in York, Western Australia, where hitherto in England, particularly before they came out to Australia, it was very hard to get hold of anything about Western Australia when the eastern states were well documented in leaflets and brochures telling potential immigrants to Australia to know what to expect when they arrived here. And I think by publishing her book, she was attempting to give a better appreciation to the reader, if they were thinking of coming to Western Australia, or what to expect. It's not a bed of roses.
What prompted them to come to York to start with?
Well, the Reverend Edward, it was primarily his health. He suffered from an extremely painful neurological disorder called, let me try and get the pronunciation of this right, it's tic Duperouzel. And if you're not careful, it's actually any sort of misuse. It gives the impression, really, that it causes convulsive face twitching.
Okay, yep.
And of course, he used to use morphine to try and control the disorder. And if you're not careful, that could lead to an addiction. But his health didn't really improve. So after 5 years, they decided to go back to England.
And what did they do when they were back in England? I see that after they returned to England.
Well, they settled in a couple of parishes where he was the curate. But in essence, by the time she was writing the book, they were actually living in a beautiful little village in the south of England called Kimmeridge. And it overlooks Kimmeridge Bay in Dorset. It's near Corfe Castle. And I've been there and taken photographs of the old parsonage. And I like to think that's where she wrote the book. Beautiful book. And it was published, as I said, by Stanford's in 1872. And soon after that, she was invited to write an article for a missionary magazine. And it took a lot of effort and endeavour with the help of the British Library to track these articles down. And I'm pleased to say I found 2 articles published in 3 editions of the missionary magazine, both of which I have included in my book, because most people I've spoken to in West Australia have never seen these articles. No. So I decided to publish them in their entirety in the book for their pleasure. And I hope that it will further enlighten their impressions of Janet Millett.
Okay, so we've got a book launch coming up at the Holy Trinity Church, York, next Saturday.
Indeed, and I'm ever so grateful to Sally Boyle and the Reverend Peter Mould for offering me the opportunity to launch the book in the church. It's a beautiful church in York.
It is.
We hope as many people as possible will come and share this special occasion. So I'm very grateful. That will be on Saturday the 15th of June at 2 o'clock. And for all those that come, there'll be a cup of tea and a piece of cake.
Oh, lovely. Well, I guess if folk would like some more information, they could contact Sally Boyle on
yes, please. They could.
0419 414 021. And Sally will be able to tell you where to come and answer any of your questions.
Yes, indeed.
William, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
I look forward to it very much. It's a great honour.
And I'm sure it will be very successful and a very interesting book on the little proceeds that I've read about it so far. It's piqued my interest, I tell you.
Can I just add a footnote here,
you can.
Keith, if I may, and that is that the book, yes, it'll be available on Saturday at the church, but also Clayton Smith and his bookshop in York, Barclay Books, will be stocking it, as will the York Society as well. I'm very grateful to them.
Okay, thank you so much, William, and we look forward to seeing you in York on Saturday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We've been speaking with author William Duperouzel.
It's KT and Rhonda with Round the Bend, Over the Hill on Voice of the Avon 101.3 FM.